Hello, everybody. This is Brian from Necronomicast. Thank you for tuning in for this exciting 14th season of the show. Could not do it without you. Now, if you're ever wondering if there was kind of a fun and inexpensive way that you could support the production of this show, I've got news for you. You can go to buymeacoffee.com/Necronomicast. Every time I have an author, a documentary filmmaker, or a creative person on this show to talk about their project, you know I've supported their project. So if you go to buymeacoffee.com/Necronomicast, that will enable me to continue to do the work that I do here on the show. So thank you so very much from the bottom of my heart for all the support and encouragement you've given me over the years. And you know what? If you buy me a cup of coffee at the website, I would be more than happy to deliver a personalized message to you on the show. 2 or more cups of coffee? I'm going to send you something in the mail. buymeacoffee.com/Necronomicast. And now, on with the show. From Omaha, Nebraska, the capital city of the historic, haunted heartland, my name is Brian Corey, and it is my pleasure to welcome you all, young and old, to this special episode of the world-famous Necronomicast. Tonight, for this episode of Necronomicast, episode 296, I am proud to bring you an exclusive conversation with writer, researcher, investigator, podcaster, content creator, Shannon LeGro. Shannon's interest in ghosts and monsters and UFOs started when she was a teen after her own personal sighting of something truly anomalous. She now has an incredible weekly show, Into the Fray, where she speaks to witnesses of all these kinds of aspects of the paranormal. She's co-authored books and been in many small-town monster documentaries that you can find on Amazon and everywhere you go for paranormal content. So tonight, everybody, my friend and yours, the great Shannon LeGro. And now calling in on the Newsmaker hotline for the Necronomicast, I'm so excited to be welcoming to the show, finally, after much schedule jostling around, the great Shannon LeGro. Shannon, how are you today?
I'm doing excellent, Brian. Thank you so much for having me. I am very excited to be here.
I am excited that you're excited because one thing I wanted to do this season of Necronomicast, I'm hitting a milestone later in the year of episode 300. So I'm going through and really wanted to focus on content creators and podcasters and researchers and documentary filmmakers, everybody that I turn to for information and content, people that I admire, people that I think that are doing a great job. So I made a list. I checked it twice, finding out who's naughty and nice. And Shannon LeGro is right there at the top of the list of people that I've been following for a while. I don't even remember when I started listening to you. I must have been back in the Sasquatch Chronicle days, but just to have you on the program, what a joy and a treat for sure.
Thank you so much, Brian. And congrats on 300. That's amazing.
I'm not there yet. I'm getting there.
Almost.
Don't jinx it.
Congrats. That's true.
Don't jinx it.
Yeah, you know what? That's funny you say that because people have reached out and they're going, 500's coming and and I feel the same way. I'm like, don't talk about it. So see, I should have known not to. I retract that. No congratulations to you.
Well, I'll send my well wishes on your 500th, on the eve of, right after 499 comes out.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, like I said, I've been following your career and your content it just seems like Shannon LeGro has just been there in the fray, I guess you could say, with your podcast, Into the Fray, but just in your books too. And your documentaries that you've been doing with small town monsters and everything. But gosh, how long have you been in this podcasting game? Because you've been in it for a long time.
Yeah, so coming up on 10 years for Into the Fray. But as you mentioned, I was on Sasquatch Chronicles, which originally, of course, was Bigfoot hotspot radio, way back when they started, right? So, and I wasn't there when they started, but I came in. Don't ask me what year. I'm terrible with years. I literally have to write down years and things because I'm just that's not my mind. It never has been. So, but that was, of course, before ITF. And then when I left SC, I thought, well, of course, I love Bigfoot. It is my favorite thing, but I've had my own experiences that had nothing to do with Bigfoot. Unfortunately, I've only had possible auditory experiences with Bigfoot, no sightings, but my only sighting was something paranormal. So I thought, well, I would like to include in my show things other than Bigfoot. So that's where Into the Fray stepped in, and I cover all sorts of paranormal goodness.
Yeah. And you do it very well. Like I said, I wanted to, get in touch with people whose shows I listen to. And I have to tell you, like, I've been listening, ooh, boy, for a long time. I mean, I remember like I was doing research on David Paulides like 5-6 years ago, and you did an interview with him. That's still one of my favorite interviews with him. So like you as a subject of documentaries, like, going and doing eyewitness reports and accounts and everything, you do a great job there, but your interview skills and how you let people, you just have a comfortable sense about you that lets people like share and get down to the meat of the story. So I thought your interview with David Paulides was remarkable. And then just all your eyewitness accounts that you cover on your show are great.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you so much, Brian. Yeah, I definitely took my time with that chat with David. I wanted to do it justice because he's put a lot of time in, as you well know, as most people realize, to all of his work and his books. And he's passionate about not only the subject matter, but the people and the families affected behind that subject matter, which I think gets lost sometimes.
Yeah. And if people are wondering what David covers, he has a remarkable series, Missing 411, all about people missing through strange circumstances in our national parks mostly, but he has identified these clusters. So he has a whole library of books out of cases that he's covered that fit his unique criteria. And just another one of those strange, weird things that Shannon LeGro covers on her podcast and books and everything. Like what got you? Now you said you had a paranormal kind of experience earlier on, but how did, like a lot of people do, like how does that translate into like dedicating your life to trying to solve this mystery?
Well, it didn't at first. I mean, not in a direct way where, of course, this was way back when I was 12. I am mid-40s now. I have no problem saying that. So this was long before any podcasts or cell phones. Pagers weren't even out yet. That was the coolest thing. Pagers. You know, the old Motorola, you get the little cheat code book. And yeah, so what happened after I witnessed 4 shadow people running in broad daylight in the woods in Duck Creek, Utah. I'm sure a lot of people have heard me talk about that experience. And inadvertently, it did get me to ask my friends and my neighbors, just offhandedly, hey, have you ever seen anything strange? You know, just out of curiosity. And some would say yes, some would say no, some would give you the look that we all still get to this day. But it didn't transfer into anything official until Wes brought me on to Sasquatch Chronicles, Bigfoot Hotspot Radio. And then I was just the co-host with them and trying to hang back and learn as much as I could from that process. Will Jevening was on there, and he, at that point, of course, had been writing books and taking reports for many, many years. And so just trying to soak that in with those guys during that time. And then show notes with Shannon. He gave me that separate show, which if they're even still out there, I don't know, but I would never want to listen to it because my gracious, not because of my guest, but because of me. You know, we're all our own worst critics. So even the early episodes of ITF, I'm like, gosh, would you just zip your mouth and let people talk? And and the audio is so much worse. And just these things that as you go through and you pick up more skills and more roadcasters and good mics, and you go, oh, okay, now I can kind of settle into a groove a little bit better. And you do find your way. But yeah, those early episodes, I'm like, oh my goodness. That's something I've learned over time, is just to try to be more quiet. Just listen a little bit more and let folks talk. And I'm sure that at some points there might be an uncomfortable long silence, but I know that they're just processing something. I'm just going to let them do that. And then they almost always finish their thought or have a new thought that I would have stepped on. So I'm better at that now.
Well, you've got a lot of skill on the microphone. I didn't know if you had any broadcast experience beforehand.
No.
Really?
No.
Okay. Because you know how to handle a microphone, and you've got a good, a speaking voice that's really clear and everything. Like that's one thing I want to compliment you on was the sound of your show sounds really good. And like I listen to lots of different podcasts, and so many people have great ideas, and they have great guests, and they're putting together a really well thought out product, but then they talk through like a cheap microphone or something that impedes the communication that they're trying to get across. And I'm not saying that you need to go out and get expensive gear and expensive equipment or whatnot, but when you do have, a reasonably good setup, that aids a lot. And your show is so listenable. Like it just sounds great. The sonic quality, the production value, and everything's really good. Do you mix the show yourself?
I do. Yeah, I do everything. Yeah. And it's funny because, and I have been guilty of this even recently, where a guest will have maybe a poor internet connection, or there's only been a couple of times literally in the 10 years that I've said, we can't do this right now. It's just not going to work in this way. Whether it was their internet or back when I used to actually still call cell phones, I no longer do that because they've just gotten worse over the years somehow, miraculously. Or they were literally just physically somewhere that it was just too much. I mean, you just cannot have all this background stuff going on, as you well know.
Yeah.
It's such a distraction from this usually very important thing that they want to share and they should share. And it takes so much out of the encounters and the stories to have all that going on. So yeah, thank you. I do try my best. I have been guilty, as I was trying to roundabout say in a long way, that probably should have done the same thing. I should have said, let's just reset. I don't know what we need to do, but it needs to be something different than this to get that good audio quality. But sometimes you just know because I've asked and they're like, nope, this is going to be as good as it gets. So you just kind of roll with it. You do your best. So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, your show sounds great. And the content too, like I'm sure you get contacted a lot by people that want to share their stories. And with that, I don't know, not asking for trade secrets, Shannon, but when people call up and they say they've got a Dogman story and you listen to it, like, do you vet them beforehand or they come on cold and then tell you the story and you're reacting to it? Like, walk me through a little bit of the Into the Fray process.
Actually, I prefer to not know hardly anything before I talk to somebody.
Yeah.
Now sometimes I think that people just start to email and then the whole thing just kind of comes out. I mean, sometimes it can be like bullet point list, which is my favorite thing, or they spit the whole thing out in the email, which is totally fine. Not ragging on them. They took all that time. I will skim that, right? I will skim it and I'll make my own bullet point list because I feel like when I hop on quote unquote live, it's not live, but live with the person to record, the questions and the conversations will be most natural if I have those nagging questions as they're telling me new information that I do not know. I don't do the pre-record, full-on, tell me your story so I can tell if it's worthy of my show.
Yeah.
I think that any experience and encounter is worthy of my show because it's important to that person. And I've found that people that have come on and they're like, well, I don't really have much to, there's not much to it, and then an hour later we'll be done and they're like, oh my gosh, like there was actually way more to it than that. And a lot of times those are the shows that people will reach out and go, there's that one little detail that, whether they came out with it on their own or it was a question I asked that jogged something in their mind. And they go, that's what got me to then reach out to you to tell my story and my encounter, my sighting. And so I encourage everyone to just don't try to gauge it off. Oh, I can't have a 5-hour episode with you or a 2-parter, or there's nothing really to this. Believe me, there is plenty to your encounter sighting. And it's all important because it's all just data points. We don't know what's going on with any of this stuff. That's part of the beauty of it. That's part of the chase. Makes it fun. But no, yeah, that was a long-winded answer. Sorry. But yeah, I encourage everyone to get in touch. And I love just somebody going, "Hi, Shannon. I had a dogman encounter in 2016 in the LBL, blah blah blah," and that's it. Boom. I'm. Let's do this. Like, what's your schedule? What time zone are you in? That's usually my first questions.
Right.
And then we find a time to talk. And I would rather not know any more than that.
I love it. So now you mentioned seeing 4 shadow people in Utah, and you saw that and you like reacted like how did you process that? Like, did you walk me through that a little bit? Like, you see something like that, and then it's gotta change your perception on things. Now, I've read a million things about a million ghosts, but I've never seen one. I've read a million things about a million Bigfoot encounters, and I've heard your show and others like it, but I've never experienced a Bigfoot. So like, I'm still on the outside looking in, even though I've logged thousands of hours reading and researching and things like that. I've never had an experience. So, but you have had an experience. How does that, further shape your, I guess, your empathy or how you talk to people about like what they've experienced? You know what I mean?
That's a great question. I think that the empathy part of that and the feeling of, I don't want to be alone. I don't want to be the only one. I don't want to be the only one to have seen something strange that you tell someone and they go, "Oh, well, I told my father after I saw these 4 shadow people. I was riding on my 4-wheeler and they were running in the woods." And he said, "Oh, he's ex-military. So that's his lens that he's looking at things through, right?" That's always important when we're talking about different people experiencing different things, which he didn't, but his lens was, those were military people, probably doing military exercises in some black outfits. I'm like, black outfits that you can't see the face or where their hands start or their feet, and the light, the sun could not find them. And it was an incredible sighting. It was only like 5 seconds, but, well, I say only 5, but really when you count 1,001, 1,002, it was a lot. It was long enough for me to go, oh, there's other things out there besides what I can see and feel and hear right now. They did not interact with me. This is something that I've said over and over again. It was like I was just watching this weird movie off to my right in the woods during the daytime. And I always say that if even one of them had turned its head and waved or smiled, heaven forbid, I think I would have had a very different experience, or process it differently, I should say. As you mentioned, how did I process that? It was a little, I wasn't terrified or anything, but it was very jarring.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it kept me off the 4-wheeler for a few days after that, which was very strange because the 2 things that we loved to do the most was get on our ATVs or go fishing.
Yeah.
Just those 2 things, I was like 12 years old. So that was our life, when we were on vacation up there. So that was jarring. And that definitely shifted my paradigm and my perspective and opinion on what could just be on the other side. And I don't know if I just glimpsed there was like some rip in a dimension somewhere. It just looked like a movie was playing that I wasn't maybe supposed to see. I don't know if it was an accident. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe it was meant for me somehow. I don't know. Not that I'm important in any way. I do wonder, of course, I think about that all the time, but I never saw anything close to shadow figures again, ever.
Have you had any people on your show? And I haven't listened to every single episode of everything you've ever done. So I'm just wondering, if it popped in my brain, has anybody ever called in with the story for you and said something either in close proximity of the area or enough of the story was the same, you're like, oh man, that is exactly what happened? Or is anything come close on your show from somebody else to your experience that you're like trying to get some more information from?
Not particularly in that area. There are a few, there's of course UFO sightings and things like that. There's haunted areas, and there are some Bigfoot sightings. I mean, it's close to Bryan Head, right? So it's not a huge concentration of Bigfoot sightings, and it wasn't Bigfoot at all. I'm just saying there's just different experiences and phenomena going on in that area, but no, not particular to that area as far as these shadow figures goes. But I have heard similar stories, of course, of people seeing them during the day and in daylight hours. You usually hear of them, unfortunately, in people's homes, standing in the corner of their bedroom like creepers to horrify people. I can't think of anything worse than that. At least for me, this was essentially a vacation spot, my dad's cabin, that we were not at 100% of the time. That makes it completely different. Beyond them not interacting with me, I could drive away from those. And I don't recall thinking, oh, I wonder if I'm going to see them in my room in the cat. I don't recall my thoughts specifically to that. That could have happened. I don't know. But yeah, that was cool. I mean, now when I look back, I'm like, I feel lucky to have seen that.
Right.
That was really cool. A lot of people will have a sighting like that. It could be UFO or Bigfoot or ghost, whatever. And then it seems to kick off, like, essentially it opens Pandora's box. We've heard that over and over. I know that you have too. That just didn't happen for me. So I was like, well, I guess I'm a little rock over here. No one's interested in me, which, hey, I have a lot on the no list, and things going down in the house is on the no list.
Right.
So I'm like, I sleep terrible anyway. I don't need some creeper in the corner of the room, playing peekaboo with me. That's not cool.
Right. Do you have a paranormal first love, like Sasquatch, or is it, dog? Like, do you have a paranormal first love that you're just like, that's your number one?
My favorite is Bigfoot. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think you.
Go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, since I was a little kid, ghosts scared me. Like I see shows about ghosts and that, no way. But I always thought Bigfoot was super cool. Out there in the woods, like as a creature. Now, the older I get, the more I read, the more I listen to, the more I watch. Of course, there's the theories that Bigfoot is just more than just an ape in the woods, right? So I dig all that kind of stuff too. But Bigfoot was like the first thing that I thought was weird and cool, but not necessarily scary, even though I'm not like a woodsman. But I just always thought the idea of an undiscovered creature out in the woods was super cool. And I remember being a kid watching In Search of with my dad and seeing the Patterson-Gimlin film. And then, 40 years later, I talked to Bob Gimlin on my show. So I think Bigfoot is probably my favorite, but then sometimes ghosts nowadays ghosts are super fascinating to me.
So then for you, if you could actually see one thing that you could see it to where you didn't feel you were in mortal danger, but you were close enough to know that's what I'm looking at, would it be Bigfoot?
Gosh,
or would it be a ghost?
I don't know. I think I'm just going to say Bigfoot just because I in my mind, the scenario of me, like, I don't know, just looking at something in the woods, or you always hear those funny stereotypical stories of a guy just going to the bathroom in the woods, just like that's the only thing he's concentrating on, but just something weird, just something like that. And then you kind of look up, or you're walking back to your camp and then something crosses your path. I think that'd be so magical. You know what I mean? Like there's that documentary series called A Flash of Beauty, just to have that flash of beauty just before your eyes. Ghosts, I don't know. I probably have to say that I would love to see a ghost, just because what does that mean in terms of us persisting after our bodily death? And you just said you're in your mid 40s. I'm a few years older than you. So, that weighs on my conscience and my thoughts more than it did when I was younger, just what happens after we die. So I did have a weird paranormal experience in a haunted theater where a door shut on me twice. So, but I say, like, I didn't see what made the door shut. I didn't see a figure. I didn't see a white, shadowy, or stereotypical ghost, but I did have like a paranormal experience where this crazy door shut on me. And I've talked about it on the show before, but yeah. So long story short, I think like being in the woods and just seeing that that flash of beauty before you, just that creature, and just being like, wow, it's all these thousands of people aren't bullshitting me.
Yeah. 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 And then it's such a fine line, right? Like between, okay, well, yeah, I would like to see a ghost, but where is it? What does it look like? Is it in my house? Does it look like the ghost from the basement of Ghostbusters where, she's just so cool and like this old granny shushing you to screaming with all of her, flesh gone, to Bigfoot, which we've heard it time and time again. People either have this experience, could be anything too, not just Bigfoot, but where it lights the fire or it puts the fire out for everything that they did love to do. Now they won't go fishing. They won't go on their ATV. They don't go camping. One gentleman on my show, oh my gosh, it was like episode 6 or 7. I don't recall. I'm the worst with the numbers and the dates and stuff. But boundaries crossed. He went out to this area that his Bigfoot mentor said, don't go here because this is like their house. Like this is where they live, like their living room. You don't go here. He literally drew it on a map. He went there, of course, after saying he wouldn't, didn't tell anybody, has this horrifying experience, crawls out on his hands and knees, back to the trail, and then slowly tries to keep himself tamped down emotionally to where he's not running to the car because they're paralleling him. But yeah, there's a fine line, right? Like he went and he got what he asked for, but oh boy, that wasn't exactly the way that he saw that going.
Yeah. Let's chat Bigfoot for a second, though. Like, I listened to a lot of your shows and on the trail of Bigfoot and like these different documentaries from Small Town Monsters. And so do you think that there's a possibility that it is more than just an undiscovered creature? I mean, the UFO connection is super interesting to me. Also, ghost of Neanderthal man, all these different theories that float up to the surface. I don't dismiss any of them. But is there anything that you are like, I don't know?
No, neither do I, Brian. And I love that you said that because I do flip flop, depending week to week, who I'm talking to, what I'm reading, what I'm listening to. I do flip flop. I never have been 100% in either camp, right? You get the flesh and blood camp, and then you got Bigfoot is this popping in and out of UFOs, and he can make orbs, with his hands and flit into the sky, and he cloaks, and I'm right smack dab in the middle of it. And I think that there is a possibility that maybe it is flesh and blood and all these other things that happen around Bigfoot when you go out Bigfooting, like orbs, which I have seen an orb while out Bigfooting, which drove me nuts, to be honest. And because you're going, really? But are these things just, they're like, hey, look at these little dudes over here hunting they're looking for the Bigfoot. Let's go screw with them, right? Yeah. Like maybe it's all just separate stuff and it's all just congregating in this little weird, these areas. Or Bigfoot can do all this stuff. I mean, I've talked to people time and again that the trackways disappear. There's no trees for this thing to jump to. And we know that they're like I call them the Liam Neesons of the woods. They're these acrobats, and they're very good at what they do. But when you talk to somebody that you can tell in their voice they're terrified because they were out camping or hunting and they see this 800-pound, essentially gorilla, I'll just call it that for lack of, I got to call it something.
Right.
800-pound something, hairy, looks like it's there, just shimmer out like the predator. And they're like, too bad I didn't wear my adult diaper today. Gosh dang it. That's when I'm like, well, I believe that person, right? And you mentioned earlier, you brought up the word vetting. There's no way that we can vet, right? Like right. It's an impossibility. Just like no one can vet my shadow person story. You just have to, I present the information and you do with it what you will, whether or not you want to believe somebody. And people are very vocal, as you well know, if you publish on like the tube of the U or something where it's very anonymous and people are very, very, they don't hold back with their comments, let's just say.
Yeah.
They will, they let you know whether or not they think a guest is a thumbs up or a thumbs down, like in Gladiator,
Yeah.
And that's okay. That's up to them. But I just provide the space basically for people to share.
I love it. What's been a big joy for me the last couple of years is I get to be the on-stage host, the MC of the Nebraska Bigfoot Conference every year at the State Fair Park. So it's got legitimacy. It's it's kind of a big deal. Yeah, it's a whole weekend thing, and they invite speakers in, and there's, they show documentaries and films, and there's vendors and all kinds of stuff. But the best part is like I introduce a speaker and they do their thing, and then there's like a lunch break or something, and all these people, I'm just wandering around looking at the vendors and talking to people, and people will come up and say, "Well, I've seen something," or that, and they'll tell their story, they'll share it, and then I'll be like, "Wow, that's crazy!" Like, thanks, and then they just, yeah, have a good day. And they turn around and then they just go about their business at the Bigfoot conference. They're not looking to sell their story. They're not looking to sell a book or be famous or do any of those kinds of things, but they just saw something. It touched them in some way, figuratively, that they want to go and just explore the mystery a little bit through a conference of like-minded people that might be skeptical, might be believers, but they just feel like kindred with them to kind of share what they've experienced. And it's a great joy for me to be able to be among those people that just have a story to tell.
Yeah, that's just nail on the head, because I feel blessed and I feel lucky and I am humbled and honored, like all of those words packed in, that people would want to ever come on and tell me their experience. And I haven't been to a lot of conferences, but when I went to John Olson's Para X a few years back in Utah, it was that same situation like you mentioned. And some of those people were like, I've never actually told anybody this, but ... And, I wasn't like, hey, come on the show. But I just let them talk. And they just go, oh, it just felt good to tell somebody that,
right.
Just say that out loud.
Right.
And I'm like, I get that because the first time I ever told my shadow person experience out loud, like start to finish, I was so nervous about it. And it felt almost strange, like, because you relive things, of course, when you tell them. And once I was done, though, I was like, yeah, that does feel good to say that out loud, start to finish, and just, it just expels from you. And there is something to that. So that anytime, every week, whoever I'm talking to, I definitely feel humbled and honored, and I appreciate the hell out of them.
Yeah. It's like, this is a funny story. Like, there was a ghost story that a friend told me that like made us bond even more, I think, and become lifelong friends, more through that story than I think that if he didn't tell me, share with me his ghost story, we would have been friends and whatnot, but like we really got deep into friendship through this story. And my friend Andrew, who, when you listen to the Necronomicast, the music that I play at the end of the show, he's a jazz musician in Denver, Colorado, but he is from Lincoln, Nebraska, and we went to the university together, and we were in jazz band. And after one concert, we kind of were friends, and after a concert, we hung out together at his house, and we were drinking beers and whatnot, what jazz musicians do. And he's like, well, this house that he was renting, he goes, this house is haunted. And I'm thinking, oh, he's got a couple beers in me. He's just messing. He's just effing with me, right, Shannon? So no, he tells me this whole story. And he's telling me like he saw this female ghost, and he tells me about the history of the house and talks about his interaction with the landlord and how other people who have rented this house in the past have seen this ghost. And from him kind of telling me this story, it was like him letting his guard down. And so like through the paranormal, like we became like closer, more intimate friends through conversation and through sharing that experience. That like if he can sit there and tell me his ghost story, and I don't think he's crazy, and I ask him questions and we're interacting about a ghost story in this house that we're sitting and drinking beers in, then like we could talk about pretty much anything else with a reasonable amount of authenticity and honesty and be able to share. So like, 30 some odd years later, Andrew's recording music in Denver. I use it on my show, and we're like the best of friends. And I credit a little bit of that. Andrew, if you're listening, hi. I credit a little bit about the length and longevity and the closeness of our friendship due to the fact that there was a ghost in his house in Lincoln, Nebraska.
Well, see, and Brian, obviously there was something about you that he could sense that he could open up to you, right?
Oh, for sure. I'm a crazy guy.
You're that guy.
I'm that guy.
I obviously put that out too. I put those vibes out too.
Yeah, for sure. Have you ever been through Nebraska at all?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't even know if I've driven through Nebraska. I don't know.
Well, if you ever get the chance, if your adventures and your travels ever take you through the Midwest, you need to come through Nebraska and stop by Harriet McFeely's Crossroads of America Bigfoot Museum. She has created this one of a kind. It's not a roadside attraction. It's a real research center. It's a real Bigfoot museum that she has crafted out of her property, out of her home, but it's exploded out of her house. And then she's the one that's also started this Nebraska Bigfoot Conference, which has grown by leaps and bounds every year. So people don't think that there's, people think skunk ape down in the South. They think Pacific Northwest. But I tell you what, if you look at the BFRO, one of the most recent reports a couple months ago was through Omaha, Nebraska. There's been sightings of Bigfoot traveling up the Missouri River through the wooded areas around the Missouri River, that waterway, like credible Class A sightings. So if you ever make your way through here, and we got UFOs to boot. So if you ever make your way through here, through small town monsters or anything like that, like there's plenty of small towns and plenty of monsters and stuff out here in Nebraska for sure.
Heck yeah, that sounds awesome. See, and what you mentioned about the waterway, the river, if I ever get a chance if I'm ever leaving Vegas to go somewhere that has wooded areas where I might see a Bigfoot, there sure as heck fire is going to be some kind of water running through that property.
Yeah.
You gotta have it. Like that will up the chances quite a bit more because they definitely are interested in following water. They would need a lot of it, before they hop into their portal and whatever they do. But yeah, it's got to have some water.
Yeah, well, you got to meet Harriet. She's like 80 years young, and her whole life, I'm a big fan of hers. Her whole life, like when she was a little kid, and she always wanted to be a museum curator. And for much of her life, people told her that was, you're small town Nebraska. You're not going to be, they shot down her dreams.
Yeah,
a lot. And now in her 80s, she's got this impressive Bigfoot cryptozoological museum. And she runs this conference and, a lot of her life, not only, because of her age and her educational background and where she grew up, she wasn't going to be able to achieve her dreams.
So why Bigfoot? Did she see Bigfoot and that just lit the fire for the
Yeah, she's had some encounters and then just weird things. And so I just didn't know if we're getting better in terms of, more... To be a female, honestly, sometimes people think, it's all, redneck dudes with shotguns looking for Bigfoot all the time. And I don't think people realize the diversity in people that are interested in cryptozoological explorations and research.
Yeah. And what's his name? The young man, Daniel Lee Barnett. I mean, we have incredible young people coming up, thankfully, now. And doing this and being extremely interested in it and really going out like boots on the ground and doing this thing. And I don't mean to keep whining about the fact that I'm living in Las Vegas, Nevada, but yeah, I do miss living in Ohio and not only being close to just any kind of woods. I don't miss seeing the roadkill all the time. That always bummed me out, but being closer to, there's just so many great conferences in the Midwest. And once you head east as well, we just don't have a whole lot of that out this way. And of course, if I had any chance of seeing a Bigfoot, I have to drive at least, 8 to 10 hours to even have a near shot at that. Sure, maybe I could go to kind of sort of my area of Utah, but it's so much more sparse there. And it's just not one of the hotspot areas, if you will. So, yeah.
Now, you've been doing some more work or some of your recent offerings for documentaries in search of werewolves and Dogman. So if I want to start getting into the world of these werewolves and dogmen, like what's been interesting you lately?
Well, and honestly, if not everybody likes to watch documentaries and things. And I do want to say about our two Dogman docs is that they're based upon Aaron Deese's two books. There's companion books along with those. So Texas Dogman Triangle is the first one, the book. And then Hunting Grounds Dogmen of the Lakes is about land between the lakes in Kentucky. So those are the two books. So, I mean, but that's because I'm a reader. I prefer to read than to consume my information via docs, which is funny because I have several out. Of course, as a Mountain Monster, they're like, great advertisement, Shannon. But I love to read. I just love to have the book in my hand and I'm highlighting. And I mean, I have a few books from like Linda Godfrey, rest in peace. She did such incredible work when it came to the Dogman. I mean, and these reports go back a really long time, and there is just nothing stranger or more. I would still probably want to see one, but it is on the no list at the same time. I know that sounds very like, let's pull our minds apart, but Dogmen are grumpy little a-holes, and they're never not grumpy little a-holes. And they seem to relish any kind of terror that if you happen to be in their area, I guess, I don't know what that is, but they don't mind getting in your face. They have no problem. They're like, yeah, we're alpha, like alpha, and we have no problem showing off that alphaness. Yeah,
like in the weird theories about military testing and genetic engineering and all this, it's crazy. Yeah, they seem way more aggressive. Like you never hear a Dogman story of just one sitting around picking berries, like, or looking for trout, like a Bigfoot story. They're always in your face or trying to mess with you or trying to scare you or causing mayhem for sure.
Brian, I do listen to Howard Stern. I've listened to Howard Stern for a long time, and there's a gentleman, it's, oh my gosh, his name just fell out of it's not Stuttering John. Anyhow, he stutters a lot. Oh my gosh, I cannot believe that it'll come to me after we're done talking. Right. Anyhow, he's big into Bigfoot and Dogman, and he calls in, and he's in Pennsylvania, I think. And of course, Howard and all of them are like, oh, well, we love you because you're a freaking kook. Like, of course, let's talk about Dogman. And then you will love this because you're going to go, yeah, you're such a huge nerd. I was so upset one day because he calls in and they're like, well, what does a Dogman look like? And he goes, or either he said it or somebody goes, so you're telling me it's a man's body with a dog's head? And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, no, I'm just like screaming at my Sirius XM, like such a nerd. And I just want to go, no, it's a upright canid, like a regular dog. Like that's any better, right? Like, right. They would, let Shannon call in, then we'll go, yeah, that sounds plausible. But it was just one of those things where I'm like, man, am I a freaking nerd? I am yelling at this man who is getting just hammered on the Howard Stern show because he said it was just like a regular hairless man's body with a dog head. How dare you get that wrong? Right.
Well, it's like on occasion, if I catch something on Joe Rogan and people will send me things like, hey, did you hear this? So he's talking about Bigfoot or things like that. And he does not believe and he'll rip apart I've heard him in the past, I think with Bob Goldthwait, rip apart the Patterson-Gimlin film. And I'm like, oh no, don't go there. Like that's like the one piece of evidence that I cherish, not only because I spoke to Bob on this here program, but it fascinated me as a kid. It's been debunked. It has not been debunked at all. We know the history of the Patterson-Gimlin film, but when people start ripping upon the Patterson-Gimlin footage, I'm like, no, stop. Like you lose credibility with me. And I get irate if you have a problem with Patty.
That's us flying our nerd flags like super high. And that's okay. Yeah. We're fine with that.
Yeah. I'm like, I was even going to ask you, like, out there you're in Las Vegas desert. Are you far from Pahrump, Nevada?
Yeah, I mean it's like we say over the hump in Pahrump because you have to go through a mountain pass.
Yes.
So it's like an hour away, hour and a half away. I think I've only been out there a couple of times, but legendary Art Bell.
Yeah,
lived out there, and over the hump in Pahrump.
All right, so we've covered some Dogman a little bit. We did some Bigfoot. We talked a little bit about ghosts, but I just wondering, like, do you get a lot of, or have you heard many? And I'm asking because I don't know. I just think with the concentration of people coming and going, and people having all kinds of emotional turmoil because of gambling and alcohol addiction and all kinds of things. I don't know if there's more or weirder ghost stories in the casino. I've been fascinated thinking about places where spirits might congregate. And I think like maybe casinos would be a good place to do a paranormal investigation. I mean, they're loud and noisy as hell. I mean, there's no way you can really do one there, but I just didn't know if people saw like phantom gamblers or, like a slot machine handle pulled down on its own.
I mean, the freakiest thing is the live gamblers down on the strip.
Oh,
but,
yeah.
Well, and that said, Brian, again, I'm not even going to attempt to guess on the number of the episode, but it was, I think I titled it Haunted Las Vegas, and I think I actually had him on a couple of times, but the legendary Steve Stockton came on because he lived here for a time, and he worked at Bally's. And where Bally's sits right now is where the old MGM sat, which of course caught fire and killed like 88 people, whatever it was in the 80s. I don't know the year, again, the worst with that, but he had several experiences because he was the on-site photographer, like media person, whatever it was. And he had a dark room there because, back in the day, actual film.
Yeah, right.
What? And he had several, many stories of that particular location. But I think, as you say, it would be tough just because you can walk into a casino at 2 a.m. and depending on if CES is in town or, what's going on, it could be a little quieter or it could be crazy, but it's never quiet, ever. Just because, as you say, the machines are loud. And then once you're upstairs, I think probably the least quiet place in the world is a hotel. And that doesn't even have to be Vegas. I mean, how many times if you can go to a Bigfoot conference and stay in the middle of nowhere, and there's like kids running up and down the hall or banging on the walls, you're like, what am I gonna do about this? I'm fine. I'm not a human. I don't need sleep,
Yeah, I worked at a hotel for 2 summers during college, and it was a great summer job, but I've got stories for days just from 2 summers working in an Omaha, Nebraska hotel. So I can't I cannot imagine in my deepest, darkest imagination what could happen over time at Las Vegas hotels. Hello.
Well, good Lord. I mean, recently this has happened before, but the Luxor, if you've been inside the Luxor, of course, it's the pyramid. Well, the floors are open. It's a completely open pyramid once you're inside of it. And again, this has happened a couple of times. And this is a horrible story. It's not, I'm not trying to say anything, but that it's horrible. Is that somebody climbed up and jumped right off from the inside of the building.
Yeah.
And oh my goodness. I mean, talk about just that. I think it was down in the little veranda areas where people, like the food court or something. I mean, that's something that you'd never forget. And God bless that person's soul that felt like they needed to do that. But it's definitely a dark place. And people can come here and they go to the strip and they can just indulge every dark thing that you can think of down there. Yeah. I mean, it's great for us locals in the sense that this is a very normal place to live,
right? Except
for that strip of land. We can go down there and get amazing food. There's great restaurants here now. Like Gordon Ramsay is one of my favorite people. Accidentally met him once because he happened to be at Hell's Kitchen. It was like lightning striking. It was like finding gold, I'm like, oh, Gordon's going to be here. Like, stick around. What? But anyway, sorry, tangent. But yeah, this place can be very, very dark. And the funny thing is everyone goes, because I have the UFO documentaries and with small town monsters and everything. And they're like, oh, well, I mean, you're in Vegas. Your Area 51's right there. You must see UFOs all the time. I'm like, no. First of all, Area 51 is not right here. It's quite a little jaunt. Of course, it wouldn't be far for a craft that could go super hypersonic, speeds. Of course, I get that. But there's too much light pollution here. You can't see. You have to go on the outskirts of town.
Yeah.
Just like anybody that lives in a city knows that. So everyone's like, oh, how can you say that UFOs aren't your favorite? You live in Las Vegas. I'm like, well, they're just not. And I'm sure if I went outside today and a craft, was hovering above me and some little dude like waved at me from, actually, I wouldn't even need the little dude. Take little dude out. If a craft was outside, I would probably then go, hey, Bigfoot, you're number 2, buddy. I don't know that could ever happen, but I just haven't, I haven't had that thing that turns my head enough for UFOs for me to be like, that's like, I don't, besides the drama that goes along with each one of these subjects, not just UFOs or Bigfoot, everything has drama, people arguing.
Yeah.
I don't want to dive into, I don't know. The UFO subject is wonderful. It's just not my favorite. So
it's funny. Like, I quote him on the show because he's done, my podcast has a live show during October, and I have paranormal experts come in for a fun night of presentation, kind of lighthearted, but fun. And I had John Tenney come in a couple times, and he had a line, and he's used it before. So I'm not stealing his line. This is his line, but he said something like if the UFO guys come down and they make contact with us, what if they get out of their craft and say, hey, have you guys figured out what ghosts are yet? It's been bothering us,
I love John.
Yeah.
I've never spoken to him. I need to talk to him. He just seems like such a genuine and funny person.
I've flown him into Omaha on 3 separate occasions for 3 separate live shows. And every time he is genuine and authentic and the real deal, exactly as he presents himself. So there's no funny, weird, hidden agendas or any ego or anything like that. That's why I had him come for 3 shows in a row, just because people A, love him, B, he's super agreeable, like he's not a diva or anything like that, and his presentations will knock your socks off every time.
You're saying there's divas in these subjects, Brian? What?
In the paranormal? What?
What?
I don't know.
No.
Oh, I hear things, but no, I'm just kidding.
That would be stranger than the subjects we cover if that were true.
Okay. Here's one of your books, Beyond the Fray. Now you have Beyond the Fray, Bigfoot, and then I'm going to pronounce this one correctly. I know I am. Beyond the Fray, Paramalgamation.
Boom.
Paramalgamation. So that's like
nail on the head.
Right. So that's a mixture of all these things and how they interact and kind of evolve and devolve into each other, kind of a weird mixture, a gumbo.
Yeah, I mean, that was a word that I came up with because I just thought, well, I mean, Beyond the Fray, Bigfoot's Bigfoot. It's a very easy label, but what the heck are we gonna call this book that has all these such just different things all over the place, which is my favorite. Mm-hmm. And sometimes the stuff that you can't put into a neat little box is my ultimate favorite that I've ever had conversations with people about. So I'm like, what in the hell we're going to call this book? And I'm like, it's such an amalgamation. It's an amalgamation. It's a paramalgamation. Yeah. Okay. So we ran with that and it's worked. But yeah, every single time people were like, what the Beyond the Fray? What the hell is this? Yeah. I came up with that word. Sorry, everybody.
I love it. So, okay. Accomplished author, renowned podcaster. You're in documentaries. What have you got coming out, or like what are some things that are interesting you or occupying your time now? I know you're working on your show all the time, and finding time for us to have this conversation took a little bit of work. I'm so glad it worked out because this is so much fun. But like, what are some things that like Shannon's got that you're working on that are interesting to you now? You don't have to give me dates or things like that, but just like what's tripping your trigger nowadays?
Well, right now there are no dates for anything. I am hoping, of course, that I get to film again with my buddies over at Small Town Monsters, because and man, they're just doing so much stuff right now, and I'm just so proud of them. They just hit 10 years, and they've got the squad side of YouTube that they have just, I mean, completely separate shows for that. And that means like documentaries and podcasts, and they're doing so much. And I'm so happy for Seth and the gang. But yeah, right now, nothing but just trying to I'm not going to say it again, but the 500, I'm not going to get there. You're going to get there. Not going to get there. Get there. No, but yeah, I'm basically just focusing on the show.
Yeah. Well,
there's really nothing else on the horizon. Yeah.
I love it. And I love every time that I get the notification that there's another
thanks,
episode of Into the Fray. Cool name. You know, usually when you say something like Into the Fray, you know, it's usually thinking about something being like involved in a fight or a disagreement or a struggle. But like, what made you settle on Into the Fray?
So I sat down, and with a lot of things, I'll do this. I'll sit down and I'll just start to, I guess it's my version of a thought bubble, and you just start scribbling things. And actually, Sam Sheeran was part of this whole process as well. Once I left SC, Sasquatch Chronicles, he and I were speaking a lot. And of course, he's the one that he came up with 100% the idea for my logo, executed that, did the artwork for it. I still can't thank him enough for all of that he's done for me. Mr. Sam Sheeran, dark artist, go check him out.
Yeah, for sure.
But I started to jot things down. Like I remembered I jotted, I wish I could find that paper. It's somewhere, Into the Gray, because you're thinking like, the darkness, the gray, like, and I love the movie The Gray with Liam Neeson about the wolves. And there's a poem in there, and it mentions once more into the fray, into the greatest fight I've ever known, something like that. It's very short, and I still can't remember it. Good job, Shannon. But I was like, well, the gray, yeah, that's pretty good. But then there's this into the fray. Like, and I know a fray is a fight, but let's go with that. So that was kind of that being born. And I know that there was other things written down on that paper. I'll have to find that. I should like frame it or something. I'm sure there was silly, stupid things written down on there. But, even then, 10 years ago, I was really trying to it's even tougher now. God bless anybody starting, to try to find a name, that sticks out, because there are so many podcasts, which is wonderful, bringing a lot of more ears and eyes to things. But yeah, that was where I got that. It's kind of sort of from that movie, that Into the Fray poem just jumped into my head when I started saying into the gray and darkness and blah, blah, blah. But yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah. So every time I get a notification, just gives me something else to listen to. So keep at it. And for me, 300 is a number on a spreadsheet that I'm inching towards, but I think I'm going to hit it pretty soon.
Congrats, Brian. Yeah, that's awesome.
And I'm excited for you too. And I'm very, very appreciative of your time. Like I said, like we went back and forth. You had a hardware
yes, I do.
Mishap, but we got everything squared away and have this conversation with you on my show. What a treat and an honor. Because like I said at the beginning, like I couldn't remember exactly like where I started encountering Shannon LeGro. I was thinking like, well, it had to have been here. And I started like you've been part of like my paranormal consciousness for a while now. So I'm like, well, it'd be so much fun to have a conversation with her for sure.
I'm sorry that my voice has been in your gray matter that long. As you know, I mean, when you're editing, it's like, God, how can people stand to listen to me? Oh,
yeah. How many times can I say in a podcast? How many times can I do that? I'll never tell. Yeah, I'm a really good audio editor.
I've gotten a little bit better with that because I'll just now I'm like, all right, just stop, just pause and just go on. But I still do it, of course. I'm sure I've done it with you, but just the actual sound of my voice, I'm going, God bless these people for sticking with me for this long.
But see, that's why I asked you if you had a broadcast background or whatnot, because you have a very clear, calming, ready for radio voice. I love it.
Thank you. I do appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Yes. So now if we want to find more from Shannon LeGro, of course, we can do a Google search and look all over there. But Into the Fray, we talked about your podcast, and there's subscriber sides to that too. You have Patreon. There's a lot of documentaries that feature you. You have your books on Amazon. Is there anywhere else that I have neglected to mention that people can go to find out more and discover more about Shannon LeGro?
Homepage for the website is intothefrayradio.com. But yeah, you can find Into the Fray. It comes out every week, every Thursday evening. That's the free side every single week. No problems there. Anywhere that you get your podcasts, and YouTube, iHeartRadio, and Spotify, of course.
Of course. Well, what a pleasure and a treat to finally make your acquaintance and to talk to you and have you on my program. Shannon LeGro, veteran podcaster, just a great interviewer, great content, thoughtful, well-researched. I enjoy it very much. It gets the highest of Necronomicast recommendations. And for you to take the time for you to appear on my show, Shannon, thanks so much. I would love to have you visit Nebraska sometime, and we could take you to the Nebraska Crossroads of America Bigfoot Museum and the conference and all that, so you can see what the heck is going on here.
Oh, I would freaking love that. I really honestly would, Brian. I just miss being close to all that just weird goodness so much. But no, Brian, you're just as busy as me. So I thank you for your time today. I really do. Thank you. It's been a wonderful chat.
Everybody, you've been listening to Shannon LeGro on this episode of Necronomicast. Well, thanks, friend.
That was fun, Brian.
Hey, that was fun talking to Shannon LeGro for episode 296 of Necronomicast. Shannon's great. If you haven't already been listening to Into the Fray, what's wrong with you? Seriously, check out everything Shannon's done. She's done a lot of work with Seth Breedlove and the folks over at Small Town Monsters, but a lot of stuff on her own. She's great. Working hard out there. Delivering a quality product. Very thoughtful. All right, my friends out there listening in Necronomicast land. Coming up on the show, episode 297, Greg Lawson, the paranormal detective, makes his triumphant return to the Necronomicast with his book, Roswell, the After Action Reports. So yes, we're getting out of the forests, out of the woods, out of the haunted houses, and we're going to be looking up to the stars with our friend Greg Lawson. Coming up later, the return of the great J.D. Barker. I'm excited to welcome Aaron Sagers. And then, oh my gosh, episode 300's coming. Lots of things coming up on Necronomicast. I hope you're doing good. I hope this podcast episode reaches you well, healthy and happy. Until next time, my friends, have a good night. Have a good life. Now go get some sleep.